Welcome back to Mark My Words Football Podcast with Rob and Scott. And another absolutely fun and fantastic NFL week here in the books. So many huge and great storylines. I can't wait to get into some of it with you folks today. So let's get right into things. Let's go ahead and start our recapping with a game of the Buffalo Bills. And this week, the Buffalo Bills defeated the Jacksonville Jaguars on Monday Night Football by a whopping score of 47-10. What a fun game this was to be in attendance for. It just an absolute raucous Bills stadium all night, and it just seemed like the Bills could do no wrong. Starting out with 5 consecutive scoring drives, the Jaguars could only get a field goal on the board in the first half, just absolute destruction, and just felt like the game was already out of hand by halftime. Just everything seemed to look so good for the Bills. I mean, Josh Allen. I mean, they were chance for MVP in the stadium that night, and I think they're well deserved. He looked fantastic. Looked like he could hit every throw he wanted. He scrambled when needed to get big first downs. Threw touchdowns to seemingly every player on the roster. Just makes some great decisions. I particularly loved that second touchdown, the one to Kincaid there, where he looks like he's about to get sacked, gets out of it, scrambles around, and just finds Kincaid dashing back across the end zone. That's just the type of play that I think I yelled right out loud after that one. He's just one of one. That's who Allen is. Like, he is just such a special player. You saw it Monday night, and you see it most nights. And how good this Bills offense has done has honestly shocked me this year. I was expecting a bit of a regression. I didn't think the talent level was quite enough. I thought they'd get by, but the fact that they've scored over 30 all 3 games so far is just incredible. And after the first couple drives versus Arizona in week 1, this defense has looked very good. Yeah, Buffalo is really looking like a real contender after 3 weeks. They do have some very tough games coming up that will really show us for sure who this team is. But right now, Buffalo's number 1 in DVOA yet again to start a season, and things look quite bright for them. Like, I can't really nitpick much anything for the Bills out of this week. Really just an awesome overall game. Everything on the offense looked good. The running game was good when it had to be. Like, Allen was super efficient. The receivers are getting open. They're catching. They're getting everybody involved. The defense was getting some sacks. They got some turnovers. Like, they got everything. That game was everything for the Bills that you could ask for. You win in time possession. You win in almost every single statistical category. You just flat out dominated this one. So, yeah, I've really liked the Bills season so far. And we'll see how confident I can remain after these next couple of weeks. But after that, we'll go ahead and we'll head over to the Green Bay Packers, where they defeated the Tennessee Titans by a score of 30-14. And I'll deflect to Rob's comments first. And he said, Matt LaFleur deserves a standing ovation for this game planning in last week's matchup against the Titans. The run game was completely unstoppable, and Malik Willis looked like a legitimate starting quarterback, which is wild. This Packers team is definitely a good team with a high turnover defense and excellent coaching. And I agree with pretty much all that. Like, absolutely, I sung Matt LaFleur's praises last week on the podcast, and I will again this week. I thought that Tennessee would be able to take advantage of that after seeing that on film, but they could not. Yeah, Packers got off to a great start, and they really pinned the Titans in, so they couldn't do what they wanted. It forced Will Levis to make some bad turnovers, which he had a couple of them. One just an absolutely awful pick six. And yeah, the Titans only able to rush the ball 11 times for 33 yards. And something that they're better at than having to make Will Levis throw 34 times. Whereas Packers, on the other hand, they were able to get up to a big lead. They were able to run the ball 37 times and not make Malik Willis do too much. But when he did, he was very good. Went 13-19 for 202 yards and 1 touchdown, and was incredible on the ground as well. And not only just like keeping the ship afloat without Love, but really thriving. Like, just really gives some great hope for this team as well. And just again, just a big round of applause for LaFleur and that coaching staff. Like, when you think of a good coach, he is a very good coach. Like, seeing what he's been able to do these last couple of weeks, he's made the adjustments he had to get his team ready. Like, completely changed the tracks of what this team was designed for coming into this season. Made it work, and made it work amazingly, and like blew them out. Like, this game plan went perfectly for Green Bay. Yeah, and it's really a credit to them. They've really started out well. Now, if we can get Love back in the lineup and see if we can get some of that magic that we were seeing at the end of last season, this Packers team could be dangerous. Now, Rob did mention a high turnover defense. Now, that's something that's having a hard time to bank on. That's not something you can count on week in and week out. Sometimes there's seasons where the ball just seems to fall your way time and time again, but season in, season out, and week in, week out, that's not something that can be counted on. So I don't want to put a whole lot of stock into that. But otherwise, yeah, I'm really liking how this Packers team has looked so far. Some very good stuff by Rob and I's two favorite teams, Buffalo and Green Bay. Everybody loves a good clown, and now it's time to meet the NFL's Clown of the Week for this week. And the Clown of the Week in the NFL this week is Chicago Bears head coach Matt Eberflus. In the Chicago versus Indianapolis game this week, in the fourth quarter, Caleb Williams threw a touchdown pass to Rome Odunze to bring the score of 14-9, a 5-point deficit. Anyone with half a brain would realize, let's go for 2 and bring it to a 3-point game. Not Matt Eberflus. He sends out his kicker for the extra point before realizing, oh, we should go for 2, and calls a timeout to be able to do this. Just what absolute clownery to not be able to figure this out beforehand. You have to burn a timeout that you could have absolutely used in a crazy ending-game scenario here. Like, just absolute nonsense and craziness from Matt Eberflus. Like, what are you doing? Is someone not in your ear telling you this? Like, what is happening? And not only that, but what you did to your offense that game. Indianapolis allowed over 500 rushing yards the past 2 weeks. And you were able to muster 63 versus them and force your rookie quarterback, who is making bad decisions, to throw 52 times. Matt Eberflus, could you not figure out a better way for your team to run the ball against a team who allowed 500 rushing yards in the last 2 weeks? And you're going to force your rookie quarterback into more mistakes. Could you not help him a little bit? Just absolute clownery by the Chicago Bears coaching staff and Matt Eberflus. Matt Eberflus, you are the Clown of the Week. Whew. Boy, does that one feel good to get off my chest. And after that absolute just clown show in Chicago, let's get into our Week 4 game picks. So we'll start things off on Thursday Night Football, an NFC East showdown between the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants. And in this game, Rob and I will both be picking the Cowboys. Cowboys lay an egg in Baltimore last week, being down quite heavily, able to claw their way back, but come up just short. They're going to have some desperation this week, as I know things are not looking too bright in Jerry World after that loss, and I'm sure people are not happy at all. Giants, on the other hand, sneaking out their first win of the season versus Cleveland in just a crazy end-of-game sequence to end that one. But, yeah, Dallas, I think Dallas is going to absolutely roll this week. Historically, recently, they have really beat up on the Giants. I think that's going to continue this week. I think Dallas really going to be able to prove that they are still a contender, that they are still a good team, and that is going to show out this week. And after that, you've got a NFC South showdown between the Saints and the Falcons. In this game, I will be picking the Saints, and Rob will be picking the Falcons. And so the Saints, man, end up losing a close one last week to Philadelphia, and they just had all the chances. Felt like their defense kept bailing them out. Like every time I saw them pop up on red zone, they just got another turnover, but their offense just could not muster anything. The offense that had been so prolific those first 2 weeks just could not get it done. And that is much more of what I was expecting to see this season from the Saints. I mean, truly. So it's been a little bit more of a regression to the mean for them last week. Though I think that we'll see maybe a little bit better than that. And a Falcons team, they take Kansas City to the brink on Sunday Night Football, coming up just short. So an interesting game between this one, and a lot of people are picking this game pretty close. And I found a hard time picking myself, but I did end up going with the Saints. They have just looked very good, both offensively and defensively. And I think even with a regression to the mean, you may see a little bit better than Atlanta, who seem to be trying to figure things out a little bit still. Kirk Cousins, I think, is still evidently harboring some injuries, and that's limiting what Atlanta can do. I mean, that certainly played a part into that end-of-game sequence versus Kansas City, where they knew that they could not run on a QB sneak. So, all that being said, I will be taking the Saints this week, and I'm going to be keeping a close eye on each of these teams to help decide what I'm going to think in the future of the NFC South. And after that, you are going to have the Los Angeles Rams and the Chicago Bears. And in this one, Rob and I will each be picking the Rams. So Rams absolutely riddled with injuries, but able to sneak out a win versus the 49ers last week. Certainly the injury showdown there. And then Chicago with the aforementioned clowns of the week there and that coaching staff ended up losing one to the Colts. And they're just really not looking good, especially that offense. That defense has propped them up a little bit, but still only getting them one win the first 3 weeks. And I think many of you on the show would know my opinion, that I think defense and special teams is only going to get you so far. You need at least a competent offense to be able to do anything in this league, and the Rams have certainly been able to accomplish that, even without Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Sean McVay is able to dial up a competent offense, and Matthew Stafford is still Matthew Stafford. So I think the Rams are going to win in this one. I don't foresee the Rams personally being huge contenders yet, especially without those two receivers, but I do think they can sneak out a win in Chicago. And after that, you have got the Minnesota Vikings and the Green Bay Packers. And in this one, Rob will be picking the Vikings, and I will be picking the Packers. Rob says, with all of this being said about Green Bay in their recap, the Vikings coaches Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores have put on a masterclass of their own, going 3-0 with Darnold and looking dominant to start in the process. With Love questionable to start, I just think the Vikings have a little bit more stability right now, and that's why I'll take them to win this one. Do I want to be this guy? Who am I kidding? I don't want to beat this guy. Yeah, of course I do. I don't have a lot of trust in the Vikings still. You may be saying, Scott, what are they going to have to do? They beat the 49ers and the Texans. Well, that's true. But I guess I do just want to see this for a little bit longer. They have had some really nice wins, but it's still the start of the season. I would just like to see them play this out for a little longer, because I don't think that is a very talented team. I truly don't think the Vikings are a very talented team. And I think that is going to hold them back. And I do think that Green Bay maybe could continue in some offensive coaching masterclass in this one. But yeah, I'm still not confident in the Vikings. And I'd like to see that some more from them. And I am, however, confident in the Packers after these last couple weeks. So I'll take the Packers. After that, you have got the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Indianapolis Colts. And in this one, I will be taking the Colts, and Rob will be taking the Steelers. Steelers sneak out a win versus LA Chargers, where they see Herbert go down early in that game, and Steelers can sneak out of that one. Fields looking a bit better, though. Able to put up some much better numbers and looking much more calm in the pocket. Certainly not taking as many sacks. And yeah, really just looking like a more competent quarterback than he has historically been. And then on the other side, you have the Colts. Anthony Richardson was not good last week, but that didn't matter as they were still able to sneak out one versus the Bears, doing what they had to, leaning on that running game of Jonathan Taylor to help them win that one. Yeah, it seems like a lot of people have a lot of faith in the Steelers. They got to come down at some point. They're not a good team. I'll repeat it till I'm blue in the face. Steelers are not a good team. They've got a couple of luck wins already. They certainly deserve to win versus Denver. I don't think that they particularly deserve to win versus the Chargers or in Week 1. It's not a good team, and their luck is going to catch up with them eventually, and I think that starts this week versus Indianapolis, who is also a well-coached team. So we'll go ahead and move on to the Denver Broncos and the New York Jets, where Rob and I will both be picking the Jets. And Rob says, wow, what a show the Jets put on Thursday Night Football. The defense was suffocating. The run game strong with two good running backs. And of course, Aaron Rodgers dealing straight up dimes to multiple receivers throughout the game. Rodgers looked a lot like the Rodgers who won MVP in 2021. Long drives, smart decisions, great in third down, and he even showed he could still be mobile. If Rodgers can keep playing like that, the Jets are real contenders. As much during the offseason and leading up to the season, I would have liked to disagree. I'm certainly on board with Rob in that fact. Jets have looked good. I've liked what I've seen. And I agree. If Rodgers keep playing like that, the Jets can be contenders. Like I said in the season preview, the Jets put a lot into some injured and just questionable pieces. They answered with pieces that they needed, but they were all questionable, and so far they've worked out all right. So we'll see if that can continue for the Jets. After that, we're going to have the Philadelphia Eagles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And in this one, I will be taking the Buccaneers, and as will Rob. Bucs was really getting the surprise of the week, losing to Denver in just a blowout. After looking so good, and I believe I said it last week too. I wouldn't have been surprised if that happened, and sure enough it did. They're that kind of team for me, where they can have their highs, but also have their lows. I don't know if they're consistent enough to be a real contender in this league. Here's a chance to be able to show that out. Eagles have some talent in their roster, although like I said over and over, not super high on the Eagles either. But here's a big prove-it week for a lot of people. Eagles are favored. Go in there. Take that game. Show who you are. So we're both taking the Buccaneers. After that, you've got the Cincinnati Bengals and the Carolina Panthers. And in this game, I will be taking the Bengals, and so will Rob. And man, the Bengals 0-3, taking a loss to the Commanders on Monday Night Football last week. The offense was not too bad. Really was not too bad. They still put up 30 points. But what did I say leading into this season? I said that defense was going to be a problem. Sure enough, it has been. To a team that did not score a touchdown last week versus the New York Giants. Just let them put up endless touchdown drives and hang 38 points on you. That defense is a problem. That Bengals coaching staff is not good. I think Zach Taylor has certainly shown that out the past few years, with how he's prepared his team to start seasons, and just how he's mismanaged his players. And just the mismanagement in general in this organization is evident all of the time. Right after I made my season predictions, I had already said, too, I feel like I almost regret already picking the Bengals for what I did. I think they do have the ability to turn it around for sure. I don't think they're a bottom of the barrel team. Man, some things got to change. Got to make some good adjustments here. And I don't know that I trust Zach Taylor and that coaching staff to do that. Panthers, on the other hand, Andy Dalton comes in, looks fantastic. Panthers get a dominant win over the Raiders last week. Called that one. Hope you're in on it. It's a good win for them. How long does Dalton stay in? How long did he stay good? I'd imagine not long. I really wouldn't imagine he stays in much longer than after week 5. If you really love Dalton and you somehow want to talk yourselves into the Carolina being good, okay, whatever, good for you. I'm not on that. I've already heard people this week that think they are. I'll shut that down right away. No. It feels like Cincinnati at some point has to get a win and get their season back on track. And no better way to start it off than against a very talent-deprived team in Carolina. And after that, you're going to have the Houston Texans versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Rob and I will both be taking the Texans in this one. And Rob says, the Jaguars were a team I thought would have a bit of a bounce-back year, considering they were 8-3 last season before Lawrence got injured. However, throughout 3 games this season, they certainly look more like a bottom feeder than a playoff contender. Their defense is bottom 3 in almost every stat, and their offense is sluggish at best. It also seems as though this team has lost faith in Coach Doug Peterson, and what little faith I had in him, in most part, is gone now. So I'll throw a little mark my words in here. Mark my words, Doug Peterson will be the first coach fired this season. Good prediction by Rob here. I think he could certainly be onto something. Yeah, that is certainly looked like that could be a good possibility now after just an absolute poor showing on Monday Night Football versus the Bills. And Houston getting creamed by Minnesota last week, just leading a lot of just people scratching their heads about what happened. But just way too many offensive line penalties. Way too many. That's got to get cleaned up. I'm sure that coaching staff was livid after that one about how that played out. You just cannot have that. You cannot have that. Got to be better. So in this one, who's going to get better? Who's going to get right? I really think it'll be the Texans. We'll get more on a groove. After not the hottest start the last 2 weeks, squeaking out a win for Chicago on Monday Night Football and then losing to the Vikings. After that, we're going to have the Arizona Cardinals and the Washington Commanders. And in this one, I'll be taking the Cardinals, and so will Rob. Yeah, Commanders putting up a lot of points, and Jane Daniels looking like he's arrived on Monday Night Football. Can that continue? I'd almost want to say no. Still don't have a ton of faith in this Commanders team. Maybe they could be kind of fun to watch, but I don't view them as any kind of contenders at all. Arizona, they've been a fun team to watch so far. Even at 1-2, they've been able to put up a lot of points. And just be much of a more fun team. And honestly, I think Arizona could be in the mix for the wild card at the end of the year. They're a team that I'd like to maybe float around with that last wild card spot. Truly. And Rob and I will be both taking Arizona this week. And after that, you'll have a game between the San Francisco 49ers and the New England Patriots. And Rob and I will both be taking the 49ers in this one. Yeah, 49ers, yet again, you find yourselves big favorites. Probably still some big injuries there. But you've still got the talent. You've still got the coaches. You gotta get it done, guys. I think they will get it done this week. Patriots. Yeah, not looking good. Not looking good at all versus the Jets last week, and that is the Patriots team I expected to see this season. Definitely is. So, San Francisco, get back in your ways. Get a big win this week. I'd count on it. After that, we'll be moving on to the Cleveland Browns and the Las Vegas Raiders. And in this one, Rob will be picking the Browns, and I will be picking the Raiders. That Cleveland offense has just been absolutely awful. Statistically, one of the worst offenses in Browns history. In Browns history. Yeah, I think some of you might know about the Cleveland Browns history, and it is not good. So to be one of the worst offenses in Browns history is something pretty special and pretty hard to do. You cannot, in good faith, leave Deshaun Watson on that field. He does not look right. He's not the same player he was. You got to get that guy off the field and to save your season. And Raiders. Yeah, blowing one to Carolina last week after beating Baltimore. Yeah, just such a weird couple weeks for that team. Although losing to Carolina is much more what I expected them than beating Baltimore this season. Although which is poor as Cleveland has looked offensively, that's why I'll be taking the Raiders this week. After that, you've got a matchup between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Chargers. And Rob and I will both be picking the Chiefs. Yeah, Chiefs off to another 3-0 start. Not looking as hot the last 2 weeks, although I feel like people are trying to say that Chiefs haven't been that good. I think they were very good versus Baltimore. I was very impressed with them that week. And I think the talent level in the Chiefs is undeniable. I think they're certainly the top contender in the AFC right now. I think they're the top contender in the league. I'd absolutely say that. Said it last week, say it again. Chargers lost Herbert last week. He's questionable this week to play versus Kansas City. You certainly don't like your chances with Taylor Heineke in play, and even with Herbert, things look a little shaky for the Chargers. Chargers are able to get a couple of wins start the season, but I don't expect them to do a whole lot of anything. I don't think there's a ton of talent on that roster, and quite frankly, I really don't like Harbaugh a ton, and I certainly don't like Greg Roman and the way he runs that offense. So I'm not expecting a ton of things from the Chargers this year. However, expecting a ton of things from the Chiefs. They always seem to be able to get it done. Even if things don't look great, they get it done. And after that, you're going to have a game between the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens. And in this game, I will be picking the Ravens. Rob will be picking the Bills. And Rob says, the Bills have looked absolutely fantastic so far, and I think they're going to keep it going against a Ravens team that has struggled so far. When Josh Allen and that offense gets rolling, it's like an avalanche. You know what's coming, but you still can't stop it. A good defense, an elite quarterback, a good running back, dynamic offensive coordinator, and a smart head coach. That sounds like a Super Bowl contender to me. We'll see what the Bills are looking like in November after their incredibly tough stretch of games upcoming, but I love how this team has looked thus far. Yeah, and they certainly have looked good, but I think they're a team that last year has shown that they can have their valleys. And Baltimore is absolutely a talented team. And it's because of that, I do like Baltimore to be able to get a win this week. Not because of how good Baltimore has been so far, but because of how good I know they can be. And I know Buffalo is dealing with some injuries on the defense as well. So I do like the Ravens to get a win this week. And after that, you've got the Tennessee Titans and the Miami Dolphins. And in this one, I will be having the Titans win in this one. And Rob will agree. Yes, the Dolphins will be likely either with Tim Boyle or Tyler Huntley. Not a whole lot of confidence either of those two things, even with Mike McDaniel at the helm. Dolphins just looked abysmal last week versus the Seahawks. And I can't imagine they look worlds better this week either. But Tennessee, 0-3. Will Levis looks awful. I would have benched him after this week if I were Brian Callahan. It seems he'll stay in. And I think Tennessee will pick up their first win of the season. And after that, you have got the Detroit Lions and the Seattle Seahawks. And Rob and I will both be picking the Lions. Lions get back into the win column last week versus Arizona, getting out a 20-13 win and looking much more like themselves, whereas the Seahawks really beat up on Miami last week, showing a stout defense and looking like their offense can be competent, but I don't think elite. So look for a Lions win this week, as I think the Lions will continue to cement themselves as contenders, while the Seahawks can be a little more middling in the NFC. And after that, we are going to head over to our Against the Spread picks for this week. And this week for our Against the Spread picks, we'll start off with Rob, and he's going to take the Bills at +3. He says, when the Bills win, they win big. I had to blink twice when I saw that I gave Buffalo as an underdog this week, so at +3, taking the Bills is a no-brainer. And for me, I'm going to take the Dallas Cowboys, -5.5. Like I said, historically, Cowboys have beat up on that Giants team, and I really foresee that happening again. I think the Cowboys want to make a big statement this week, and they absolutely believe that they will. So I'll take Cowboys, 5.5. After that, we're going to head on in to Rob's fantasy starts and sits of the week. Rob sent him over. I think he's got some good stuff cooking up. Let's see what he's got this week. He says, start, running back Brian Robinson Jr. With Austin Ekeler out for this week, Robinson is uncontested primary running back, but this isn't just an injury-related start. Robinson had played quite well to start the year and faces a weak run defense in Arizona. Jayden Daniels has been the best rookie quarterback thus far, and Robinson should be his go-to guy in the screen and option plays this week as well. So start Brian Robinson Jr. Also start wide receiver Rome Odunze. Caleb Williams still may not be completely comfortable with NFL football, but he's getting there. He threw for over 300 yards last week and will now face a Rams secondary that is very prone to giving up big plays and explosive plays, which is Rome Odunze's specialty. I think the Bears really want to foster a strong connection between Williams and Odunze, which means many targets will come his way. With Odunze, even a couple of catches can mean close to 100 yards and a touchdown. So this week, start Rome Odunze. As for the sits, Rob says to sit wide receiver Michael Pittman. One of the NFL's most overhyped wide receivers. I disagree, but we'll keep reading what he says. Pittman has been a non-factor to start 2024. Anthony Richardson's play has been erratic and unpredictable, and Pittman's production has greatly suffered as a result. Until further notice, Pittman belongs on your bench, so sit Michael Pittman. Also sit running back Rachaad White. White was a running back that was very carry dependent last year, but it seems to be becoming less of a bell cow this season. His carries have gone down 2 weeks in a row, and I expect him to go up against a good Eagles front, so sit Rachaad White. And finally today, I will have Scott's Parlay Bet of the Week. We came also close last week before getting screwed by the Pittsburgh Steelers. So we're going to look to get in the winning column this week with what I'm cooking up for a very good parlay. So this week, we're going to bet the New Orleans Saints. Pretty much a pick 'em here, plus 100 for the Saints. I do like them versus the Falcons. They've certainly carried that momentum this season. I think a good amount of people are picking the Saints, and I think you'd be right to jump on that bandwagon. I'd also like to pick the Arizona Cardinals. Some slight favorites here versus the Commanders. I think Commanders getting some juice after that Monday night game, but I think Arizona is a better team. So I'm going to take Arizona. I got a minus 186. And finally, I've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at plus 110. This is not an Eagles team I trust, and Tampa Bay Buccaneers have looked good, certainly points in the first 2 weeks, but not the third. I definitely like them to bounce back. So this week, I'd like to pick the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So in total, this week, bet on the money line, New Orleans Saints, Arizona Cardinals, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And that is all I have for everyone today on the Mark My Words Football Podcast. It has been just a fun and really a wild start to the NFL season. I feel like I'm coming here saying every week it was a wild week. So if every week's wild, can you really say any week's wild? I guess that is up for you to decide. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed, please like, subscribe, and leave us a review. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts. This has been Mark My Words Football Podcast with Rob and Scott. We are tuned